International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
Following a meeting with the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, the President of the International Football Federation, FIFA, Gianni Infantino, has highlighted here in Algeria's football talent and praised the prominent role of the Algerian head of state in the development of sport. Iran has officially informed Pakistani authorities that it is not participating in peace talks with the U.S. in Islamabad, scheduled for today, Friday, until a ceasefire is established in Lebanon. And the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, has condemned the wave of Zionist strikes against or across various spots in Lebanon on Wednesday, describing as horrific the reports of hundreds of martyrs and injured people. The majority of them are civilians. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail from Radio Algeria International. First in our news, the President of the Republic, or the International Football Federation, FIFA, Gianni Infantino, has highlighted here in Algeria's football talent and praised the prominent role of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, in the development of sport. During a meeting granted by President Tebboune to the FIFA President and his accompanying delegation, Infantino warmly congratulated the President of the Republic on the Algerian national team's qualification for the upcoming 2026 World Cup, calling it a great achievement, expressing the feeling that the Greens have something special and could create major surprises and deliver great matches at the 2026 World Cup. He also revealed that he had personally invited President Tebboune to attend the final phase of the 2026 World Cup. The FIFA president said the talks also focused on the structural development of football in the country, where the people are all passionate about this sport. He further highlighted a shared investment strategy in academies and school of football, stressing that football education is fundamental for young people. Furthermore, Infantino said he discussed infrastructure with the President of the Republic, praising the work accomplished by the Algerian Football Federation and the exceptional stadiums Algeria now possesses. It is worth noting that the FIFA delegation, led by its president, Gianni Infantino, arrived in Algiers on Thursday as part of a working visit to our country. The delegation was welcomed at Houari Boumediene International Airport by Sports Minister and the President of the Algerian Football Federation, FAF, Walid Saadi. During the visit, Infantino is set to inaugurate the Regional Technical Center of Lalla City under the FIFA Forward program, open a FIFA arena, a mini pitch at Ahmed Inal Middle School, and launch FIFA's Football for Schools program. The visit aims to strengthen cooperation between FIFA and FAF, particularly in infrastructure development and grassroots football promotion. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has carried out a cabinet reshuffle whereby he appointed Mohamed Arqab as Minister of State and Minister of Hydrocarbons, Murad Hanifi as Minister of Mines and Mining Industries, and Karima Tafer as Secretary of State to the Minister of Mines and Mining Industries, according to a statement from the Presidency of the Republic. The President of the Islamic African Union, Sheikh Mohammed Al-Mahi Ibrahim Niyas, and the Secretary General of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, Hussein Ibrahim Taha, have both extended condolences to Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune and the Algerian people following the death of former President and Mujahid Lamin Zarwal. They expressed deep sorrow over his passing, describing him as a symbol of wisdom, moderation, and national unity in Algeria. They also praised his long career of sacrifice and service to the nation and the broader Islamic community, highlighting his wisdom and steadfast leadership during a critical period in Algeria's modern history. The Minister of State, Minister of Foreign Affairs, National Community Abroad and African Affairs, Mr. Ahmed Attaf, has received a phone call from Canada's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Anita Anand, who reiterated the condolences of her country's authorities to Algeria following the death of former President Mujahid Lamin Zarwal. A ministry statement said that during the call, the Canadian Minister the two ministers discussed ways and means to boost bilateral cooperation, particularly through the exchange of high-level visits between the two countries. The two ministers further reviewed developments related to the negotiation process aimed at settling the Western Sahara issue in light of the provisions of United Nations Security Council Resolution 2797. Mr. Ahmed Attaf also received a phone call from South Africa's Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Ronald Lamola. During the call, the two men agreed to hold a meeting soon in order to continue implementing the conclusions of the last session of the Joint Grand Commission, co-chaired by the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, and South African President Cyril Ramaphosa. The two ministers also exchanged views on developments in the Gulf and Middle East region, expressing their hope that the anticipated negotiations between the parties at issue would address the root causes of the conflict and pave the way for a definitive settlement that guarantees lasting and sustainable stability. The UN Economic and Social Council, ECOSOC, has elected Algeria to the Organizational Committee of the UN Peacebuilding Commission and the UN Statistical Commission, and also elected Professor Younes Zabish to the International Narcotics Control Board for the 2027-2032 term, according to Algeria's Foreign Ministry. Algeria secured 36 out of 54 votes, exceeding the required majority, ranking second in the election. The INCB is an independent quasi-judicial UN body that monitors implementation of international drugs control treaties, ensuring drugs are available for medical use while preventing illicit trafficking and misuse. The ministry said the election reflects recognition of Algeria's role and expertise in combating drug trafficking at the international level. The Algerian Council for Economic Renewal, CREA, and the Spanish Confederation of Employers Organization have signed a memorandum of understanding in Madrid, Spain, aimed at strengthening economic relations between the two countries and realizing a strategic orientation towards the structuring of joint industrial projects. The deal aims to boost trade, attract mutual investment, and create a roadmap focusing on priority sectors and concrete cooperation projects. Algeria also presented a joint production model centered on early-stage industrial processing to complement Spanish manufacturing and attract Spanish investors. CREA President Kemal Moula said the initiative will help create jobs, add value, and diversify non-hydrocarbon trade, while the chief of the Spanish Confederation, Antonio Garamendi, called it a turning point in bilateral economic relations. And still with the domestic file, the national airline company Air Algérie and the Algiers Airport Authority signed a memorandum of understanding to build a modern cargo center aimed at improving logistics efficiency and supporting economic growth. The project, to be completed in 12 months, will include upgraded freight facilities, cold storage, customs areas, and new administrative offices with a future expansion planned. Officials said the hub will modernize cargo operations, support non-hydrocarbon exports, and strengthen trade integration, including with African markets. The project will be self-financed and operated under a 30-year management contract. Meanwhile, Air Algérie plans to launch new regular flights in 2026 to 5 African cities, as well as Warsaw and Shanghai, supported by the renewal of its fleet. The company's CEO, Hamza Ben Hamouda, noted that a new Algiers-Libreville route will open in mid-June, while additional African destinations, including Luanda, Maputo, Accra, and Lagos. Expansions to Shanghai is planned for winter 2026, and Warsaw as part of European network growth, depending on aircraft deliveries. And the U.S. Embassy in Algiers has highlighted the long-standing relationship between the United States and Algeria, describing it as one of the partnerships that helped shape American history. As the United States marks 250 years of independence, the embassy recalled the 1795 Treaty of Peace and Amity, which laid the foundations for one of America's longest diplomatic relationships. The treaty also made Algeria one of the first countries to recognize the United States. More than 2 centuries later, the embassy said, this diplomatic spirit continues through dialogue, cooperation, and people-to-people exchanges between the two nations. To the international arena now, Iran has officially informed Pakistani authorities that it is not participating in peace talks with U.S. in Islamabad scheduled for today, Friday, unless a ceasefire is established in Lebanon. The Iranian negotiating team has not arrived in the Pakistani capital, Islamabad, and has no plans to attend peace talks with the U.S. until Israel stops bombing Lebanon, Iran's Fars news agency reported, citing a knowledgeable source. The news agency denied reports from some U.S. media outlets that an Iranian negotiating delegation had arrived in Islamabad, as the Wall Street Journal had earlier reported that an Iranian delegation had arrived in Islamabad to begin negotiations with Washington. The agency claimed that Iran has officially informed Pakistani authorities that it will not participate in the peace talks with the U.S. in Islamabad until a ceasefire is established in Lebanon. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Baghai also stated that any talks aimed at ending the war between Iran, the U.S. and Israel would be contingent on Washington honoring ceasefire commitments on all fronts, particularly in Lebanon. The latest developments came as Israeli attacks on Lebanon intensified despite ongoing diplomatic efforts linked to a 2-week ceasefire announced Tuesday by the U.S. and Iran and brokered by Pakistan. While Pakistani mediators and Tehran said the truce also covered Lebanon, Washington and Tel Aviv denied that. Still in the Middle East region, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk has condemned the wave of Zionist strikes across various areas in Lebanon on Wednesday, describing as horrific the reports of hundreds of martyrs and injured people. The majority of them are civilians. To find out more, let's listen to this report by our colleague Mariam Bershi.
The High Commissioner said in a statement that the scale of the massacres and destruction in Lebanon is simply appalling, adding that carnage is inconceivable and places enormous strain on fragile peace, which civilians so desperately need. He highlighted that international humanitarian law clearly states that civilians and civilian infrastructure must be protected, stressing that these principles are non-negotiable and must always be respected regardless of the circumstances of the armed conflict. Volker Turk also called on the international community to act quickly to put an end to the nightmare in Lebanon. This came as Lebanon's health ministry said that the Zionist strikes carried out across Lebanon left 300 martyrs and more than 1,000 injured. In an early toll, the ministry had reported 203 martyrs and around 1,000 injured. Added that the cumulative toll since the beginning of the Zionist aggression against Lebanon on March 2nd has risen to 1,888 martyrs and 6,092 injured, while the army announced that 4 of its soldiers had also been killed in Wednesday's strikes. For its part, the World Food Programme warned against a rapid worsening of food insecurity in Lebanon, saying its convoys are still moving, but conditions are becoming increasingly difficult and unsafe, with rising needs and disrupted supply chains. It reported growing transport problems, farmers unable to access land in the south, and rising global fuel and fertilizer prices. The World Food Programme called for safe and sustained humanitarian access, warning that Lebanon is quickly turning into a food security crisis, with rising prices and declining incomes already affecting households.
And with this, we come to the end of this news bulletin. For today, time now for our weekly programs. I'll meet you again tomorrow for a fresh edition of our news bulletin. Thank you and goodbye.
Today we chose for you the coastal city of Oran, one of the most beautiful cities in northern Africa. Santa Cruz is a historic site that you should visit once in the city of Oran. Asia Bika will tell you more about it in the following report.
The majestic Jebel Marjajou overlooks the city of Oran, extending to the west, dominating the Oran region of Algeria. The steep rocky cracks of the mountain range eventually taper westward, forming a long flat plateau. Perched on top of Jebel Marjajou is the imposing Spanish-built Santa Cruz fortress, with the Our Lady of Santa Cruz Basilica and Nerbi standing as reminders of past conflicts and the seeking of solace. Oran is believed to have been established by Moorish and Andalusian traders at the end of the 1st century, but really started to develop as a strategic settlement when captured by the Spanish in 1509. The Santa Cruz fortress, Santa Cruz being Spanish for Holy Cross, was built in 1563 under the direction of the first Marquis of Santa Cruz, Don Alvaro de Bazan. The strategic position of the fortress at more than 1,000 feet above sea level allowed a wide view of the surrounding area and the Mediterranean Ocean shoreline. Following a battle against John of Austria, in which this son of Charles I led a flotilla consisting of 33 galleys against the Algerians, the Spanish set about reinforcing the Santa Cruz fortress to accommodate and thereby protect their city officials and governors. The circumference of the immensely strong, tall and thick walls of the fortress measured more than 2.5 kilometers, with strong towers at regular intervals. Within these strong fortified walls was a central castle serving as the headquarters for the Spanish governor. The beautifully preserved Santa Cruz fortress at the summit of Jebel Marjado now welcomes visitors to explore the fascinating museum within its walls. The strategic position of Jebel Marjado has played a vital role in the history of the area, especially with regard to how military operations were carried out over the years in defense of the city. For example, an account of the conflict that took place between British and American forces that landed at the nearby port city of Ezio on November 8, 1942, as a prelude to the invasion of Italy during World War II, reveals that at the valley formed by Jebel Marjado and Jebel Santan allowed a vantage point from which the invading forces would be vulnerable to counterattack or defensive action. While the defenders of Iran used their knowledge of the terrain of Jebel Marjado and its surroundings as best they could, the city was seized by the Allied military forces within a matter of days. Certainly, battles of that magnitude no longer disturb Iran and its many inhabitants. Nevertheless, the majestic Jebel Marjado still stands guard over this fascinating Algerian city.
Let me tell you more about the city of Oran. Oran is perhaps most famous for being one of the birthplaces of the Rai music style. This inventive form of music is one of the more modern music styles that is popularly enjoyed in the various parts of Algeria and all over the world. The easygoing and liberal atmosphere that pervades the city of Oran is clearly evident in this style of music. Initially performed only by men, it soon became the domain of many women, many of whom have become very bit as popular as their male counterparts. Founded by Moorish and Andalusian traders around 937 AD, the city has been in existence for a long time. Due to its position on the coast, it quickly developed into a city with a thriving trade industry and established strong business ties with Spain. Unfortunately, it wasn't too long before the Spanish took occupation of Oran. This soon changed when invading Ottoman forces captured the city, but the Spanish rose to reclaim the city 2 years later, only to abandon it when it suffered from an earthquake in 1790. The French eventually occupied the city in the 19th century. Oran is a lot larger than many think, the second largest city in Algeria. It is an industrial, cultural, and educational center for the country. Though part of it is covered by high-rise apartment buildings and ordinary homes, there are older parts that make for interesting sightseeing. The Great Mosque, built in 1769, is a good place to start. It is open to the public, which is quite unusual in this part of the world. The Marabout city Muhammad al-Huwairi is a very good example of Andalusian architecture. For all things historical, the Dmer Museum has exhibitions that span thousands of years. The Cathedral de Sacré-Cœur is a beautiful old building that has been converted into a public library. Though Oran is a coastal town, the beaches in the immediate vicinity of the city are not terrible good. However, a short trip away from the hustle and bustle will leave you with miles of beautiful sand and refreshing seawater. It may be a bit out of the way, but Oran is a great place to visit while exploring Algeria.
To travel back in time and learn about the most prominent events that marked human history, no need for a time machine. Echoes of Time with our colleague Mariam Bershi is your only address. A program broadcast to you every week on Radio Algeria International.
Welcome to Echoes of Time, the program where we travel across centuries to uncover the defining moments that shaped human civilization. I'm your host, Mariam Bershi, and today we're stepping into the Yamato period of Japanese history, spanning roughly from the 3rd to the 7th centuries. This era is a cornerstone of Japan's history, marking the transition from fragmented tribal societies to a unified political state under the rule of the Yamato clan. It is a time when myth meets history and the foundations of modern Japan were laid. Let's begin our journey back in time. To understand the Yamato period, let's first set the stage. Before this era, Japan was a land of independent clans, or uji, each controlling their own territories. These clans worshipped their own local kami, or spirits, and had no central authority to unite them. The rise of the Yamato clan changed everything. Based in what is now Nara Prefecture, the Yamato clan gained power through a combination of military strength, alliances, and control over fertile agricultural lands. By the 4th century, they had established dominance over other clans in the region. What gave the Yamato clan their unique authority was their claim to divine lineage. They asserted that their rulers were direct descendants of Amaterasu, the Shinto sun goddess. This claim not only legitimized their rule, but also helped them unify disparate tribes under a single spiritual and political framework. During the Yamato period, the rulers didn't rely solely on divine claims to maintain power. They were also skilled diplomats and military strategists. One of the Yamato state's most effective strategies was forming alliances with other powerful clans. Marriage was a key tool in this process. By intermarrying with other uji, the Yamato rulers solidified their influence and created a network of loyalty that extended across much of central and western Japan. But alliances were not always peaceful. The Yamato state often used military force to subdue rival clans. Evidence from coffin tombs, which contain weapons and armor, suggests that warfare was a common part of life during this period. 5th century, the Yamato rulers had established themselves as the central authority in Japan, with other clans recognizing their supremacy. This marked the beginning of Japan's first unified state. One of the defining features of the Yamato period was Japan's growing interaction with the Asian continent, particularly with China and Korea. These relationships were instrumental in shaping the Yamato state. From Korea, the Yamato rulers adopted critical technologies such as iron tools, advanced agricultural techniques, and horse riding skills. These innovations not only improved productivity, but also strengthened their military capabilities. From China, the Yamato rulers received even greater influence. By the 5th century, Japanese envoys were traveling to Chinese courts, and Chinese culture began to leave its mark on Japan. One of the most significant imports was the Chinese writing system. The introduction of kanji revolutionized governance by allowing the Yamato rulers to record laws, communicate more effectively, and strengthen their administration. Imagine the transformative impact of writing. For the first time, the Yamato state could issue decrees and record history, establishing a sense of continuity and structure that unified their people. Another major influence was Buddhism, which arrived in Japan from the Korean kingdom of Baekje in the mid-6th century. Initially met with resistance, it was eventually embraced by the Yamato rulers as a means of enhancing their prestige and aligning themselves with continental powers. Buddhism would go on to play a central role in Japanese culture, but during the Yamato period it coexisted with Shinto, the indigenous belief system. This blend of traditions became a hallmark of Japanese spirituality. The Yamato period is often referred to as the coffin era, named after the massive burial mounds built for the elite. These tombs, shaped like keyholes, are some of the most iconic symbols of this era. The largest coffin, the Daisen-Yero coffin, is believed to be the resting place of Emperor Nintoku. Measuring over 500 meters in length, it's one of the largest tombs in the world. What makes these tombs remarkable isn't just their size, but what they tell us about the Yamato rulers. The scale of the coffin demonstrates the Yamato state's control over labor and resources, while the grave goods inside reveal a society with strong connections to both local and foreign cultures. Surrounding these tombs were haniwa, terracotta figures shaped like warriors, animals, and houses. These figures served ritual purposes and give us a fascinating glimpse into life during this time. By the late